Hi everyone, and welcome to the second and final part in this series of videos on the building of Master Box's 1/72nd scale Austin Mark III armoured car. As you can see from this short video, the build is now complete, and what we're going to do in this video is look at the use of oils through the way of oil paint rendering to produce this finish, along with some pigment work as well. So if that's something of interest to you, then here we go with the oils. Using a cardboard palette gives you a chance for the linseed oil to drain out, which makes the oils dry that bit faster, using the combination of 501 Abteilung and Winsor & Newton. Also, we have some thinners and we have a variety of brushes and also some blending brushes as well, and also a stir to enable us to do some splashes, and the all-important towels to take off any excess. So first of all, using the thinner, we just basically clean up the part that we're going to be putting the first type layer of oils onto, and this just makes it a little bit easier for the oils to adhere to the surface. Don't need to overdo this, just enough to give it a moist finish, and that will soon dry anyway. First of all, we're going to put down a dust layer. So using Abteilung's dust oil, along with a combination of other buffs and yellows from Winsor & Newton. We're going to mix all of these up. What I'm doing here with the stir is that, as you can tell, this palette's a little bit old. I leave my palettes in the fridge, which gives them a longer shelf life. But obviously when you come to use it, you just need to break the top crusty layer to get the softer oils underneath. And then, as you can see, I'm just using a blending brush and some thinner to blend all the different light dust colors together. And then using the brush, what I want to do is just apply a wash type of consistency of oil. And this will then be blended. And then once dried, that will be your first layer in this layering process, like we like to call oil paint rendering. Now, oil paint rendering is championed by the mighty Mike Rinaldi, Rinaldi Press Studios. I've put all his links in the descriptions below, so go and check out his work. In my humble opinion, he's one of the best model builders out there at the moment. So once the wash has been applied, it's then a matter of blending it in. This is a dry brush. Quite a bit of it will come off, but it will leave you with a nice dull effect on the white tires. And then what we need to do is to get the hair dryer, and once that has been dried, we can then start doing some splashes, splatterings, and it's just a simple matter of using the Tamiya stirrer, using consistency of oils, and then using the brush to put it onto the model part. And as you can see, that's come out really well. And again, that will then be hair dried and dried in. Now, if there are some dots that you're not happy with, you can again use a dry brush and you can just gently go over and blend those in. And that's the great thing of using oil paints. You have a lot of control that you wouldn't have if you were doing this with acrylics. And there we have it. Happy with that finish. So the hairdryer was used to dry it all out. And once that's dry, then that enables us then to continue with the next layer. And here I'm just using one colour rather than blending them all in, and I'm going for the slightly darker buff colour now. And this, we can then start to do some actual dust patches, mainly in the grooves and the rims of the wheel. And this just produces a really nice effect once blended out, as you can see here, giving that sort of radial blending rather than the usual dabbing with a brush. And that's your two types of blending is your backwards and forwards motion and your dabbing, and you can produce different effects with the oils according to what it is that you require. Again, once done, use the hairdryer. Please remember, hairdryer and plastic parts don't go together too well. They will melt the plastic, so make sure you have it on the low heat. So with the dust layers done, what we're going to do now is just to add some dirt effects. Here I'm using raw umber, and you can also use things like Van Dyke Brown, Starship Filth, anything that you feel will associate with the actual colour, the base colour that you're using. So in this case, the white tyre. So applying not quite a wash, a little bit more thicker than a wash, because the other layers have all dried out. There's no risk of you actually sort of blending it in with those dust layers. And again, as you can see, I'm using a radial action. And here I've got a lovely little effect there with the blending brush. I was really pleased with how that all turned out. And you'll also notice I've done a little bit of pin wash in between the spokes as well. So again, out with the Tamiya stirrer, and we'll do some splatter marks. This time, it's not quite the wash consistency, is a lot thicker, and because it is a lot thicker, the oil, this time your speckles will be a lot more defined. They won't spread out, and that was the effect that I was after. Now, with the actual rims, the edges of the tyres themselves, um, this was quite awkward. So this time I decided to actually, I'm not a great fan of doing it this way, but to actually apply the oil and then take it off. And what that enabled me to do was to fill the grooves of the tyre with the darker oil. And as you can see there, we got a nice dark effect. And then once that was all dried again with a hairdryer, it's a matter of just buffing it up with a cotton bud. That will leave the area in the grooves and the outer area with the white. So as you can see here, I've done all the dust layers underneath, and I've also done the dust layers on the side as well. With the blending brushes, we use slightly smaller ones than what we'd usually do with the 1/35th scale. And again, we have the washes, the thinners, and the paper towels. And now I'm using a slightly newer palette. But again, the principles are the same to clean off the main bodywork with a very moist brush of thinner. You don't want to swamp it, but again, it will help with the oil work. So now what I want to do is do a little bit of mapping. And what I mean here is that we're going to improve the winter whitewash. As you can see at the bottom there's a little bit of that pigment work that we did. And what I want to do is add the lighter white oils to that, and that produces a lovely little effect. Again, you can use your reference photos for this, but primarily what we're trying to do is just to make the whitewash look more realistic. Sort of go over the areas that didn't come out too well when we did the hairspray chipping. And then once that's done, again, we can do some more splatter work using the Tamiya stirrer and the oil paints. And as you can see, that's come out really well. I was very pleased with how that came out. And then it's just a matter of getting the small dry brush. And again, you can blend out the dots that you didn't like. But also what you can do is to start dragging some of these dots downwards to create some nice subtle streaking marks as well. As you can see here, I'm using the smaller brush as there is a little bit of precision needed. What I like to do is try and do one area at a time. And because of the nature of oil paint rendering, you've produced one side, so when you come back to it another day, you can just use that as a reference on the other side as well. But again, really pleased with the way this was all heading. So with the whitewash mapping done, it is now a matter of adding on some dirt, and again, using the raw umbers and burnt siennas and the Van Dyke Browns, we can start enhancing the pigmented area. And now we're adding on the oils somewhat more thicker than what we would do usually. And that creates that nice matted effect. And then using the blending brush, that can all be blended out to create another layer of dark above the pigment layer that we did during the acrylic stages. And again, the beauty of using oils is very manageable. And again, once that was dried up with the hairdryer, I went in again and added a slightly smaller layer, but again, nevertheless, a distinctive one with a slightly different shade. And there we have that lovely, matted, dirty look along the bottom of the chassis cover there. And again, just follow that principle all the way around. And then once that's done, I added on a sepia pin wash. And this meant breaking the oil all the way back with the thinner. And then just allowing the capillary action, as you can see, to take the oil paint around this wonderful riveted effect. Now again, try and let this dry naturally first, because if you get the hairdryer on, it will just go all over the place. And then once that's dry, you can start to blend it out. And again, adds another layer of dirt and grime. Now what I did was to mix up some of the different green oils that I had into a khaki colour. And then what I wanted to do was just add a few little dots and dabs around the khaki area. Again, just to add a bit of depth and a bit of colour contrast. And again, once dried, that produced a lovely effect, and I was really pleased with how that turned out. Now, as far as the turrets go, exactly the same process. So again, adding on the dust layers, then the winter whitewash layers, then the dirt layers as well. And again, as you build up all of those layers, you build up depth, you build up interest, and you give that illusion of time and dirt and grime on the actual vehicle. And here we have the turrets all done. Again, really pleased with how these turned out. In fact, I was really pleased with how the whole build was going at this stage. It was a lovely kit to work with, and the all work came out really well. Lots of depth in there. So with the oil work done, I decided to add a bit more interest with the more pigments. Here we're going to be using a combination of middle toned pigments all mixed together, and then using some pigment fixer. We stir it up and make a paste, and then with that paste we get the stirrer out again, and then use a nice thick brush to add all of those different types of splatter marks along the bottom. And because you're using pigment fixer, it's just a matter of leaving that to dry overnight, and then you have a nice speckled effect. Again, if you want to, you can use your brush just to drag some of those lumps of pigments down to produce some nice streaking effects as well. But really pleased again on how this had all turned out. And it's all about the layering. Just add different layers, whether it's oils, whether it's pigments, just to build up the interest on the vehicle, and really gives a lot of depth. And we did a little bit of shading and colouring around the eye slits there as well. And then another part of the layering process is to get yourself a lead pencil and just go around the edges. Don't go too over the top with this, just in parts where you think there might be some wear and tear. And again, that just gives an extra bit of interest to the viewer. So there we have it. It was a very simple kit. The paintwork didn't take a great deal of time, and it was just to have a lovely break from the norm. This is purely an out of the box model, and with using oils and pigments gives you a good idea of the effects that you can produce at whatever scale you wish to. So that just leaves me to say thank you very much indeed to all of my subscribers, old and new. I really do appreciate your continued support of the channel and of my work. And that just leaves me to say, happy modelling, everybody.